This separation of mother and child happened countless times during preparation for shipping. Yes, shipping. In those days, Africans were property, objects to be bartered. The picture you see to your right is one of the dungeons in Cape Coast Castle where I stood several times and reenacted the story of slavery as I learned from my forebears. Hello, I'm Dorothy Mensah-Aggrey, and I work at the Institute for Pastoral Initiatives at the University of Dayton, where I design and facilitate online faith formation courses. I also teach a one-credit course, Forum for Young Catechetical Leaders, for students who choose a minor in catechesis. I identify as an immigrant of African descent, IAD, for a purpose. I was born and raised Catholic in Ghana, West Africa, where countless slaves were traded during the transatlantic slave trade from the 15th century up until the mid-19th century. My background is a combination of music, dance, drama, theology, and education. By identifying as an immigrant of African descent, I stand in the gap and try to build bridges. Studying theology shed light on the atrocities of this church that I love so deeply and which has also hurt my people severely to the core. One example is Bartolomeo de las Casas, a bishop who requested that African slaves replace Native Americans and the Spanish because Africans were stronger. Although he recanted that position before he died, the harm had already been done. Some threads, when sown, are difficult to unweave. However, Christ, the second person of the Trinity, who calls us to reconciliation, asks us to leave no stone unturned. In order to do that, though, we must acknowledge the truth, the whole truth. Has the church done any good? Certainly. Has it done some undesirable things? Indeed. I would like to take you through a brief exercise prior to continuing with introduction of my esteemed colleagues who will touch on various aspects of the University of Dayton's collaboration with the Archdiocese of Cincinnati in an effort to bridge the gap and possibly tear down the walls of systemic and endemic racism which tend to bind us in vicious cycles. Are you ready to journey with me? Take a deep breath. Close your eyes momentarily, if you will, and imagine yourself walking on the sandy shores of a beach. Keep walking. You hear the laughter of children playing games. You can even hear some drumming going on in the distance. Now imagine this. On a cool late afternoon, on the beach in Central Region, Ghana, you are invited to take a stroll to one of the castles which housed thousands of slaves a few centuries ago. As you enter the compound of this majestic white edifice, you can almost immediately sniff the sorrow of those who died on this holy ground. The waves keep lapping against the walls of the castle as the sea beckons to you. But the grief is palpable. Your tour guide, noticing your reluctance to advance further, gently nudges you to move along. You oblige and tread gently, almost afraid that you will wake up the sleeping souls. You move in the darkened hallway, wondering how anyone could live in this manner. The guide directs your steps so you will not stumble. Suddenly, you find yourself in a tiny space in the basement. You are told this is a room. A room? You wonder how. A typical room in most parts of this country would have a cement floor. But this floor is different. The cement is buried underneath the blood, feces, and urine of slaves who were kept captive here as they awaited shipment to foreign lands. Then it hits you. The smell, the stench, as you stand in the daze in the lower chamber of this fort. you suddenly become aware that this was not simply a holding place for slaves, but a dungeon, a cemetery, a burial ground. My God, how can this be, you ask yourself? Slowly, as if in a trance, you move along listening to the faint sounds of the tour guide. Although the guide is right next to you, it seems the words you are hearing are from a distance. They are whispers. You look back into the dark space and look ahead into the distant sea, the Atlantic, not sure what you're experiencing or hearing. You are wondering how the slaves may have felt inwardly. You are apologizing to the forgotten souls who endured this misery. Is it the echoes of the slaves as they screamed for mercy, or the whispers of their descendants as they sang their native songs of hope that you are hearing in the wind? Friends, there are often echoes of racism within our systems, yet there are also whispers of healing. How would we, as the Archdiocese of Cincinnati, or wherever you are, like to proceed? Take a deep breath and exhale. You may open your eyes now. This exercise is to assist you to understand the pain that still lives in the memory of descendants of enslaved persons, oral tradition handed down from generation to generation. History, as we have come to realize, when told by perpetrators of an evil, cover the truth with white lace. This exercise is also to help you understand that we, all of us, have a choice, either to perpetuate what has been put in place in our systems and structures, or to collaborate to bring about an end to such unjust systems. We are reminded in Micah 6 and 8 of what is required of us. With what shall I come before the Lord and bow before God my Most High? Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, with calves a year old? You have been told, O mortal, what is good and what the Lord requires of you. Only to do justice and to love goodness and to walk humbly with your God. As Christians, we are called to do what is good, love your neighbor as yourself. We are called to be just in our ways, fairness in all things. We are called to walk humbly with God, to acknowledge our sense of omission and commission, and ask the Lord to guide us to right the wrongs, so that with Joshua we can say that as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. So I stand in the gap and humbly ask you to consider the following video presentations of my colleagues here at the University of Dayton, who shed light on other aspects of dismantling the singular sin called racism. You would hear from Julio Quintero from the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. He discusses globalization and race, how people were separated in categories and displaced for the sake of land and then forced into labor. You have probably heard of the slave voyages and the plantations. Julio provides a rich background to racism and European history. Emperor Haile Selassie of Ethiopia said, "Until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, until the color of a person's skin is of no more significance than the color of his or her eyes, until the basic human rights are equally guaranteed to all without regard to race, until that day, the dreams of lasting peace, world citizenship, and the rule of international morality will remain but a fleeting illusion to be pursued but never attained." Bill Trollinger from the History of Religious Studies departments discusses white supremacy, the KKK, and their nefarious activities right here in Dayton not too long ago. Bill guides us to tell the truth of what happened, which will free us to do the right. I'm reminded of Pilate's interrogation of Jesus. What is truth? We are here because, as uncomfortable as it may be, we seek the truth. Leslie Picker from the Sociology Department follows with structures of oppression the role of white supremacy in our U.S. culture. She reminds us about the difficult and discomfort feelings we experience when such dialogues are brought forth, what I call being uncomfortably comfortable. Sometimes people are uncomfortable with certain situations, yet in order to make things right, they will have to give up some privileges which they are not yet ready to forgo. Tiffany Taylor Smith, also from the Office of Diversity and Inclusion, picks up on this concept of inclusion and sheds light on implicit bias and dimensions of systemic racism, talking a walk through the judicial system and how it has impacted certain ethnic groups. She shows us how we can get out of Orwell's Animal Farm if we so choose. Sister Nicole Trahan, a Marianist, talks about her experience on being Black and Catholic. In case you are wondering, yes, she loves her faith. And yes, she got picked on countless times. I will allow her to share her story. Vince Miller from the Religious Studies Department also shares his personal reflection on white privilege with the hope that those who doubt that white privilege exists will begin to understand the subtle meanderings of this privilege. Some get it, some don't, as noted by Beverly Daniel Tatum. She commented in her book, Why Are All Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? A white male student in my Psychology of Racism course wrote in his journal at the end of the semester that he had learned a lot about racism and now understood in a way he never had before just how advantaged he was. He also commented that he didn't think he would do anything to try to change the situation. After all, the system was working in his favor. Why would whites who are advantaged by racism want to end that system of advantage? Kelly Johnson, the Father William J. Ferre Chair of Social Justice at the Department of Religious Studies, rounds up these presentations with a conclusion for hope. Friends, this is where we can all play pivotal roles. What steps would we take moving forward of these discussions? Our Christian call linked to the resurrection of Christ is all about hope. There is hope on the horizon. At the core of Fratelli Tutti, Pope Francis reminds us that in the dynamics of history and in the diversity of ethnic groups, societies, and cultures, we see the seeds of a vocation to form a community composed of brothers and sisters who accept and care for one another. He adds, every brother or sister in need, when abandoned or ignored by society in which I live, becomes an existential foreigner, even though born in the same country. Racism is a virus that quickly mutates and instead of disappearing, goes into hiding and lurks in waiting. Martin Luther King Jr. is quoted as saying that love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. We can do this. The U.S. Catholic bishops remind us that for a nation to be just, it must be a society that recognizes and respects the legitimate rights of individuals and peoples. These rights precede any society because they flow from the dignity granted to each person as created by God. Let the cry of Mama wait for me. Turn to Mama, I am right next to you. Or Mama, see how far I have come. Aggrey of Africa noted that the black keys of a piano make good music. So do the white keys. However, combining the black and the white keys make great and beautiful music. This is the power of collaboration. Let us see with our hearts, act with our hearts, and walk humbly with God. If you will, please allow me to end with a poem, My Heart Sees You. Mama, wait for me. Mama, please do not leave me. Mama, the cold. Mama, the sea. Mama, mama, mama. My child, my heart, my very breath. My child, your umbilical cord is in our land. The ancestors will guide you. Your heartbeat is my heartbeat. My heartbeat is within you. The sun cups my heartbeat by your side. The moon cradles our heartbeats next to our cheeks. No ocean, just sky. See, I am with you. Heartbeat to heartbeat. My heart sees you.